In November of 1990, Williams released a unique pinball machine known as the Funhouse. The premise is that you get the pinball in and around the funhouse while Rudy, the mascot of the cabinet, looks at your ball and mocks you for trying. 34 years later, Flippin' Out Pinball released a remake of the Funhouse with a all new aesthetic, and a scoreboard screen, and a new batch of modes. I have never seen a pinball machine yet, but watching YouTube videos, I can tell that this pinball machine has potential to make a great return of a cult classic. Then it gets me wondering, if Flippin' Out can release a rebooted version of an incredible cabinet, why not do it with other classic pinball machines? Hello on YouTube, this is Louis Trans, aka Untitled, aka Louis JM, and today I'll be diving into the top 10 pinball machines that deserve to be rebooted. Yes, this is my first time doing an actual list, and you all should bear with me as I will be trying to talk about the pinball machines that need a revamp. Before we start, we need to break a few ground rules on this list. Well, number one, I'll be focusing on pinball machines from the 1980s and 1990s. The 2000s and 2010s are not allowed because most of them are mostly IPs of franchises and nothing original, and the later years have the digital screens and not the classic scoreboards. Number two, when talking about pinball machines, I will talk about the aesthetic and design of the revamped versions, and not the mechanics behind it. You can't just change the mechanic part of the pinball machines, as they are things that can never change. Though I will make a small exception at the number 10 spot, the rest will be the same mechanics, but different look and design. And number three, while I will be explaining the pinball machines and how they need to be revamped, there will be actual gameplay footage of pinballs on the list of different games and platforms, including Xbox One, Switch, tablet, and cell phone, just like the video of the original Funhouse you are currently seeing. If you don't wish to see the footage, you can still listen to my list if you like. But either way, you won't miss out on anything. Let's begin. Let's start with the most basic of ones, shall we? Dorado. Released in 1975 by Gottlieb, it was widely known as the most classical of pinballs from the company. Its premise is that it's just as simple. Like the other pinball machines of that era, score as many points as you can by hitting the targets on the top and side before the ball drops to the bottom. Mechanic-wise, it is one of the few pinball machines that started with two more flippers, especially to get to the higher targets. And while the placement is a bit wonky, it's the satisfaction of reaching those set targets that will get to you. The theming is also unique, like the classic art within the 60s and 70s, as it showcases a bit of a Wild West vibe to the game, an instant classic if I do say so myself. Now, in 1984, 9 years later, after the first pinball cabinet, Gottlieb returned with a sequel to Dorado known as the City of Gold. It shows the same type of mechanics as the last one, but was rethemed from the western to a jungle and temple with built-in music and sound effects to help accommodate the theming. It was one of the first pinball machines to get a sequel within the franchise, with a few others following suit. Now, given that this was a classic, and there are a few pinball machines that gain a trilogy of cabinets, which we'll get to in the honorable mentions, I feel like Dorado would need to be revamped again for the current generation. The main question is how to reboot Dorado. With the first one focusing on the western front and second one in the jungle, there's one thing that would fit the name: a casino. Let me explain. There is an El Dorado casino located in Reno, Nevada, and giving the name, it would be fitting to make a pinball machine out of it. Now, as I mentioned before, the mechanics need to be altered a little, as the certain placement of the upper flippers are crack shot, as you might get on one of the flippers on the left, or get into the chute with the bumper and a hope that it didn't go into the middle. So here's my proposal. Create a second level for the cabinet with a built-in ramp to launch the port while keeping the hitters on the top. The flippers will just be like the ones at the bottom, only wider, and a smaller ramp that goes down to the main floor, which won't change the prop change, and a popper in the one with the holes underneath, and a popper in the holes underneath the launch right back. To launch right back. As for the theming, the idea would be similar to a high roller with bumpers and hitters like playing cards, like craps tables at the bottom portion and blackjack in the upper. The facade on the top would have to be a slot machine with the digital score part at the bottom and those digital slots you see in the casinos recently. One of the values is that there will be a hole in the cabinet that will activate the slot machine and spin to gain points, and you use flippers to stop each section. The three of a kind, like sevens, jackpot, and different fruit, you would gain millions of points. If you don't get three of a kind, you get thousands of points, but don't win. Now this isn't a gambling cabinet, mind you, but it will give you a gambling field. I feel like this is rather fitting to make a trilogy of pinball machines with this one as it was one of the first pinballs that ever get a sequel. While the idea of a casino-themed cabinet would be a bit much, it really does fit the name in general. Sure, it wouldn't make you feel like gambling, but so were a few other pinball machines that focus on gambling in general. So all in all, it would be fitting for El Dorado to have a revamp into something as awesome as a casino theme. Pinbot was released by Williams in October of 1986. The premise is that you soar through the solar system while activating the Pinbot by going to its optics for a two-ball multi-ball. Never got through all the planets, as the closest is Pluto, back when everyone thought Pluto was the ninth planet on the solar system before it was revealed to be just a rock. But it was really enjoyable to have some really good playability. However, this isn't the pinball machine that needs to be revamped for the current generation, as it is still good as is. Instead, we are focusing on the sequel to the cult classic, The Bride of Pinbot. Now, The Bride of Pinbot is the most unique pinball machine out there. As a sequel, instead of going around the solar system, you are trying to activate the bot's bride. No, oh, you know, the same bride you see in pachinko board at the original Pinbot, or the ramp, I believe. I just don't remember. I just have a vague memory of that. It's like the Bride of Frankenstein if you can see the similarities. How it works is that you need to go up to the ramp a couple of times to give the bride a voice, sight, and activation before, giving her life as a human for reasons. Yeah, it was confusing, but it did grant you not only multi-balls, but also big jackpots once the bride got life. Although not a big enough hit like its predecessor, it was still popular enough for the bride in general. So how will this be rebooted? Well, as the mechanics need to be the same, the appearance needs to be slightly different. The artistic need to be similar to that of Heavy Metal, the monthly magazine comic franchise that show off provocative, if not violent content, with the most famous being the female android from issue number 44 that was released in November of 1980, the same one that was on the cover of Aerosmith's Let's Just Push Play album. That will be the bride in the revamped pinball machine. The facade at the top will have a square-sized digital screen with CGI animation of space and a floating scoreboard on one side and the revamped bride on the other. Whenever you start activating her, be that give her a voice, sight, and turning her on, would make her do some family-friendly erotic poses. What? Pinball machines tend to go a little over the top with their facades, with the women on them back in the 60s and 70s. Plus, the original Bride of Pinbot had an erotic pose as well, and it was a static picture, no less. But the original bride of Pinbot had an erotic pose as well. But when you make her alive, the Fandroid, that's what I call her, turns into an actual human being, and each jackpot will make her feel turned on. Yeah, that's something that would happen. In short, the Bride of Pinbot, while not a true success, it still has a following to the first game. If it was revamped for the current generation, then a lot of people will enjoy not only the gameplay, but also the artistic utopia backdrop that features that said female android. It'll be quite something to see. There have been a lot of weird pinball machines over the years with a variety of themes centered around it. You have ones involving bizarre weather, one involving natural disaster, one that is black and white for reasons, and one involving an insane game show. There is a lot of strange pinball machines that people have seen and played for decades. Some memorable, some obscure. This pinball machine is a bit of both. Dr. Dude! Released by Bally in 1990, this pinball machine was one of the most unique themes out there, and that's saying a lot. The premise is that you are just a nerd that partakes in Dr. Dude's, yes, that's the name, specialized dude machine that turn you into an absolute dude. What I find strange is that how they handle it. There are multiple numbers on how to activate the machine, and even if you hit the special bonuses and such, it wouldn't matter as they all need to be in order. Still, the most popular one out there is the iconic spinner at the top, where you take the ramp up and the spinner hits the ball in many directions, giving out a multitude of points, sometimes millions or gazillions, if you activate the machine, which is still impossible. Either way, the pinball machine is a cult classic and it's worth the playability. Now, this pinball machine needs a serious update because, let's be honest, it's a little outdated. No one says dude or sounded like that, and with today's youth that focuses on Gen Z influencing, it would be difficult for them to gel with a machine that is over 33 years old. And since the theme turns nerds into dudes, why not have a pinball machine for the current generation that can turn a nobody into an influencer? And who better to represent the influencing culture? It's that of Logan Paul, Mr. Beast, and KSI. Yes, I know what you're thinking. They are the worst influencers within YouTube, and I could agree with you. But given their track record, their popularity, and things they did outside of YouTube, you can understand that they feel like they should have their own pinball that is similar to Dr. Dude. Give a title like Influencer Institute with Logan Paul, Miss Beast, and KSI, with a facade of them doing poses with a ridiculous building behind specifically designed to turn a nobody into an influencer. The mechanics, while the same, need to have the influencer vibe too. Make a spinner into a vat of chocolate where it will represent Feastables from Mr. Beast. Have the test your strength gimmick be a prime bottle from Logan Paul, where the more you hit it, the more it shoots out liquid on the screen of the facade, which acts as one of the three influencers holding a tablet. Even have a gift of gab as a lanky box icon. You know, that ridiculous brainwash content kids watch nowadays. I know I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel, but I do need to fit all these weird influencing BS somewhere, right? Still, the possibilities are endless. Yes, they currently have a lot of flack due to recent events, but they still have a strong enough fan base and doesn't look like they're going away anytime soon. So if there is anything that can immortalize them into pure stardom, then a pinball machine based on them with a Dr. Dude gimmick is a way to go. Besides, This cross-branding venture is better than those lunchable knockoffs they have been promoting. I can understand why the retro video game nerd doesn't want to try it out. In 1986, Williams Pinball released a game known as High Speed, which is a high-octane pinball cabinet where your ball acts as the car speeding away from the cops. 6 years later, a sequel came out known as The Getaway. While I rarely played the original Pinball Machine, I played a lot of Getaway, both in person and on my phone, as seen on this video. What I like about the Pinball Machine is its unique mechanics due to its supercharge feature. Basically, when you time the ramp, the ball spins around a couple of times to gain 1,000,000 points each. Of course, you need to hit a couple of bumpers to increase supercharge. For its aesthetic to its gameplay, The Getaway is the perfect sequel for the high-speed franchise. Now, how to revamp for the current generation? Simple. Just make it out of the IPS trilogy, a la the Fast and Furious franchise. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Fast and Furious is a high-octane, extreme racing and action filming series involving Vin Diesel. I enjoyed the film franchise as a whole, and while it left us with a cliffhanger ending in Fast X, the franchise does have its moments. So how to handle this? Well, have the title High Speed 3, Fast and Furious, with the designs and facade all themed to the Fast franchise. Have the facade itself be a screen that showed clips of the FNF with special jackpots, modes, and a multiple involving racing, action plots, and collecting your FNF characters through the game. And the Supercharge jackpot? Make it a Nitro Boost jackpot where Nitro Boosts will be presented on the screen. I gotta tell you, after years of the Fast and Furious arcade cabinets I've seen, I never got a pinball version by a long shot. If they can incorporate FNF with the high-speed pinball cabinets, then we might have a complete trilogy out of the pinball franchise, even if a Fast franchise is added into the mix. Now, there have been a good assortment of pinball machines themed around either amusement parks and circuses. In fact, the Funhouse is sort of a combination of the two, as both an amusement ride and a roadside attraction. But out of all the circus and theme park themes, pinballs, nothing tops Cirqus Voltaire. The story behind it is that you are the performer, showing off some crazy feats to wow the audience and judges. To do so, you need to gather multiple marbles from different modes. Some easy, some difficult. But the main event is the ringmaster, as you need to beat him a handful of times just to get the special bonus. It is creative, artistic, and challenging, worth the playthrough. Now, for it to be revamped, the aesthetics would be similar to that of Funhouse, but the facade has to be much, much different. Have it shaped like the inside of a wide circus tent, with the inside being complete screen filled with CGI 3D circus performers, doing stunts and the like, when you take part of the challenge modes. As an added bonus, when you awaken the ringmaster, the enemy version of it will be in the middle while the performers flee, and it will mock you for attacking him with faces, and his defeat will be an explosion, shatter, pop, or some other random defeat like animation. While it isn't as complex as the others, Cirqus Voltaire does have a better shelf life when it comes to rebooting the pinball machine. In 1985, Bally Midway released a popular pinball machine known as Attack from Mars. mostly based on a certain alien attack games. Your goal is to wipe the invading alien forces that come down from Mars to attack Earth. There are a multitude of modes to try, be that building a blaster, rescuing women, attacking the Martians, which are little plastic guys around the board, and hit the flying saucer that's attacking each city. Accomplish each mission, you get the chance to attack Mars. It is a fun and entertainable pinball machine to replay over and over again. Now, they did try to do a sequel to the game with Revenge from Mars in 1999, with a 3D projection acting as the facade. However, the pinball machines with these projections weren't a huge hit, and was discontinued, making this and Star Wars Episode 1 the only two pinball machines that had these 3D imagings. So, if the sequel doesn't work, why not create a remake of the original? It does work with movies, sort of, and if you are to remake a classic pinball machine like that, why not use an IP with that said premise? See, a year after the pinball machine's release, Warner Bros. Released a sci-fi comedy film called Mars Attacks. Directed by Tim Burton, this is the same plot as the pinball machine, as you need to defend Earth against the invaders. While outdated in the current year, it was a cult classic, and is remembered through Easter eggs and other properties. Hell, there is going to be a roller coaster tycoon game involving these little guys known as Mars Attacks. I see what they did there. So, if you can make a movie that became a big hit, why not revamp the 1995 pinball machine and have a Mars Attacks theme to it? Replace the aesthetics with the film version of it, replace the plastic green men with the big-brained ones with the helmets, and have a digital screen on the facade that not only shows clips of the movies, but CGI of military vehicles and saucers with a variety of modes that fit the film. Even use the Yodel multi-ball for shits and giggles while you're at it. Whether it's Mars Attacks or Attack from Mars, it will still be a classic pinball we all knew and love. Released in 1987 by Williams, Medieval Madness is one of the most insane pinball machines around the mid-90s. The plot behind it is about you overthrowing all kingdoms within the land. There are a total of 5 castles you need to defeat, each harder than the next. Hit the bridge and gate a couple of times, and you gain entry to the castle, and once inside, complete hilarity ensues. Of course, there are multiple challenges and modes you need to accomplish. Most of them will lead to their own multiples for serious jackpots. Be that it being trolls, rescuing the damsel, firing the catapult, and breaking the castle walls. All in all, a fun and enjoyable game with plenty of replayability and skill. Now, it seems fitting that it needs to be revamped for today's generation, since they never seen a pinball machine as elaborate as this. But how to incorporate the mechanics into today's generation? Well, why not make an IP based around medieval times, with a sprinkle of comedy in it? Who am I talking about? Well, Monty Python and the Holy Grail / Spamalot, of course. Granted, this movie came out in 1975, as it ribs on anything medieval and the like, but you can't say no to a Monty Python IP pinball machine with the medieval madness mechanics. Come to think of it, did Monty Python film inspire Williams to do a medieval madness in the first place? Curiouser and curiouser. Regardless, this would be a way to show the younger demographic what we as a generation watched back in the day. As for how it would look, well, it's no-brainer. The sides and inside the pinball would have the familiar images of the characters from the movie itself, with certain modes that fit the theme. And the arcade would have the look of a castle with a hole in it where it will show a digital screen showing clips of the film in general, showing off modes of what the Knights of Spamalot have to endure in order to reach the castle. I mean, just the thought of a mode where you need to kill the man-eating bunny would be enough to get a pinball company interested in making a pinball machine of this magnitude. Still, we would like to see something like that into play. Since the Jersey Jack pinball machine came to being with the Wizard of Oz, they are in need of something that fits the mold. And with Monty Python's Medieval Madness pinball machine, that is all up in their alley. Creature of the Black Lagoon in 3D is one of the most creative ways in handling a pinball machine. Released in December of 1992 by Midway Bally, instead of taking place in the 1954 original film, which is mostly a black and white film at the time, this instead takes place in a 1950s-style drive-in theater, where the movie is playing. Still don't know why they call it 3D, but I guess they went all out with the theming. And all out they did. The objective of this cabinet is to spell out film for a creature feature multiple, and to accomplish that, you have to perform 4 different tasks, including opening the snack bar, getting a multiplier, kissing, and going on the slide. And what makes it unique is the 3D image of the creature itself appearing at the base of the machine after spelling out the letters, initiating the multi-ball. Seems simple enough, but could get a little difficult if you don't have the tasks correctly, or if you time it just right. Still, it is a really good game, and it became a huge sensation, to the point where they made an actual monster pinball machine, but that's in the next entry. So revamping it for children of the current years, while it looks good as is, there should be a few things that needs to be polished, especially the facade. Have it still themed to the drive-in of the 1950s, but have it look more modernized, like that Neon Trees music video Everybody Talks. Have the artwork look more lifelike and less cartoony, yet keep the creature 3D image at the base. Add some 1950s style cars on the side to make it look like they are actually parked, and have the headlights blink and horns blaring if they either get hit or the ball reaches the 2 ramps and loops. And as for the facade, have it look like you're in your own 1950s car with the movie screen as an actual scoreboard. And any modes you unlock, it would be a trailer or an intermission for the mode. Then when reaching multiple, you have it play the actual creature from the Black Lagoon movie. It is a perfect way in presenting the cabinet for a younger demographic, and give the older ones a bit of a nostalgic trip in a way. Will that work? Don't know. But I feel like the new designs will work for the next generation while keeping the themes and the mechanics of the original. Six years after the creature from the Black Lagoon, Williams released an epic pinball machine known as Monster Bash. Like its predecessor, it involves not one, but multiple universal monsters, the iconic of the iconic. Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, the Bride, Mommy, and even the creature itself. But instead of distilling fear, this group wants to do something that is unprecedented. They want to rock. See, there's a special pinball where you must gather each band member through elaborate ways using loops, ramps, hits, and the like. Once you gather them up, then, and only then, you let them perform and hit the multi-ball. It is quite a creative way to make this pinball machine, and certainly has its unique moments. And while it is a bit frustrating, it can be very exhilarating. Revamping should be a bit difficult. I mean, as a pinball machine as classic as Monster Bash, you need to make it as classic as Universal Monsters. Say, for example, have the look be real life and not cartoonish, with a black and white backdrop on the surface. As for the facade, it should look like an old school TV circa 1950s, 1960s, with a channel that says Monster TV, or MTV for short. Get it? There is one we have to play music videos based on modes you unlock. Say, for example, Full Moon Fever for the werewolf, Drac Attack for Dracula, Mummy Man for the mummy, etc., etc., etc. And it will feature live actors playing these perspective roles too, not some silly little animations and the like. Honestly, this mixes the black and white monsters with the 1980s MTV theme, just like peanut butter and jelly or milk with chocolate. Hopefully, we get something like that in the near future, but nothing compared to the number one slot. So, what's number one? What pinball machine that needs to be revamped the most? Which pinball machine that exceeds all others on this countdown? Well, I'll let this voice say it. Frankenstein! That's right. The number one pinball machine that needs a revamp is Sega's own Frankenstein. Released in 1995, this pinball, based on Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, is the most epic out of all of them. It makes things easy when it comes to multi-balls, extra balls, various modes, and the most sickest Frankenstein bust out there. You can simply spend hours on end ranking up the highest points and not lose a single ball if you're lucky. Yep, this is simply one of the best pinballs out there. Now, how to revamp it for the current generation? Well, obviously, the mechanics must remain the same, but the design itself needs to be real life like the film. The same can be said with the facade as well, as it will have a Jersey Jacks-like screen showing clips from the film, and combines with CGI element of the static scoreboard and some special modes. Sort of similar to Willy Wonka or Godfather or Jurassic Park and the like. While not as grandiose as the previous entries, it still has an epicness of the gameplay. And even if it's an IP, it is one of the best IPs to top all other IPs. Yeah, that's right. I said it. Fight me. All in all, while these pinball machines have the classic following, not everyone today knows about it. And after seeing the Funhouse get its own reboot after over 30 years, more needs to follow suit, whether it be the entries of this list, or if there are others that are in need of a revamp. The current pinball companies need to get to work on reworking the classics for today's youth to experience and for the veterans to have a bit of nostalgia. What do you think? You think this list is good? Or are there any pinball machines that deserve a revamp that's not in the list? Leave a comment below and stay tuned for more videos. Hashtag, where are the good cartoons?